Welcome back to All About Winning Daily Fantasy Sports. My name is Ty Patton. Hopefully you have had a chance to view my position videos for week 16. But if not, I want to make sure that I wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays from my family to yours. If you're new to this channel, I want you to know that what I do is I devote a video to each position: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, defense, special teams, throughout the week. And then I take the players that I have targeted and highlighted in each one of those videos, and I develop a player pool. Then I take that player pool and I do a lineup building video, which is this video, and my favorite of the week, where we finally put all the research together, build some winning lineups, put a nice big bow around it, and put it under the tree for tomorrow. We've done pretty well this year with the player pool. There's been 4 times where the player pool actually provided a lineup that would have outscored the eventual winner of the Millie Maker on Draftkings. I use that contest as the measuring stick each week, and 4 times this year I've had the player pool that would have outscored that particular lineup. I did not have that lineup, but it's been a profitable year, to say the least. And I want to thank you guys for joining me, and I hope that you have been able to use this information and get some value out of it. Now, before we put these lineups together, let's recap the player pool that I've developed this week. And these are all from the videos. I've added a couple, and I'll tell you which ones those are. I'm going to give you the ownership numbers that I have. I utilize a paid site. I've sent them an email to ask them if it's okay if I mention their names during my video. I want to make sure I do everything on the up and up before I start using names and things on my videos. But these numbers are from a paid site, the ownership numbers that I have right now. And these are projected ownership numbers, obviously. Quarterbacks that are in the player pool this week: Lamar Jackson, his ownership number is sitting at 12% right now. Russell Wilson, 17%. Drew Brees, 6%. Dak Prescott, 9%. Matt Ryan, 9%. Ryan Fitzpatrick, 6%. Phillip Rivers, 4%. And Andy Dalton, 2%. Those are the quarterbacks that I'm going to be targeting this week. Running backs: Christian McCaffrey, 18%. Chris Carson, 16%. Saquon Barkley, 6%. Ezekiel Elliott, 9%. Leonard Fournette, 16%. Joe Mixon, 12%. Marlon Mack from Indianapolis, 7%. Devontae Freeman, 10%. Melvin Gordon, 16%. Philip Lindsay, 8%. And I added Alvin Kamara, who has an projected ownership number right now of 17%. Excuse me. These are the wide receivers that I'll be using in my player pool. Michael Thomas, 18%. Julio Jones, 21%. Tyler Lockett, 10%. Devontae Parker, 10%. Amari Cooper, 11%. T.Y. Hilton, 8%. McLaren from Washington, 4%. Keenan Allen from the Chargers, 20%. Cortland Sutton from Denver, 6%. Tyler Boyd from the Bengals, 12%. John Ross from the Bengals, 5%. And Larry Fitzgerald, 9%. I added Fitzgerald. Tight ends: Zach Ertz, 12%. Darren Waller from Oakland, 9%. Mark Andrews from Baltimore, 5%. Hunter Henry, 13%. Hooper from Atlanta, 17%. Hollister from Seattle, 11%. Goddard from Philadelphia, 3%. Gesicki from Miami, 7%. And I added Caden Smith from the New York Giants, who's at 2% projected ownership. These are the 4 defenses that I'm going to target primarily. Baltimore, they have a projected ownership of 3%. Denver, projected ownership of 15%. Indianapolis, a projected ownership of 8%. And the Tennessee Titans, a projected ownership of 1%. Now, an important thing with the projected ownership numbers, those are really important when you're building DFS lineups, whether it's large GPPs, head to head, 50-50, double up, smaller GPPs, 100-person contests, because it's okay to have some chalky players, but oftentimes to differentiate yourself and to get an edge, you can find players that might have lower ownership and pivot off the higher chalk because they have just as high of a ceiling as the player with the higher ownership. There are some interesting numbers in projected ownership this week. One that really stood out to me, I thought Saquon Barkley, after the week that he had last week, would be higher than 6%, but they raised his price $1,000. A couple others. Well, Julio Jones' ownership is higher. Projected ownership's a little bit higher than Michael Thomas. I can understand that because of the savings that you get, and a lot in wide receivers. There's a lot of variance from week to week, and a lot of times the chalky, expensive wide receivers bust at a very high rate. It's hard to get that correlation of wide receivers from week to week. Always look for value and make sense of your lineups when you're putting them together. I like to use a quarterback and have at least one target, a wide receiver, a tight end. The only quarterback that I don't really feel necessary that I have to do that is Lamar Jackson. I feel like he's a running back and quarterback, so I'm getting two players with the price of one. And a similar situation for like Christian McCaffrey. He's two players. He's a running back and a wide receiver. His salary is really high, but you're getting two players. So I look for those type of things. And value for me is the bottom. The least I want to get is three times the salary. Obviously, you want more. I try to use three running backs by using a running back in the flex position when possible. I'm shooting for at least 70 touches between those three running backs. If I can get 70 touches, and that's carries and receptions between those three running backs, that's going to put me where I want to be. The average this year, you're looking at like 1.19 points per touch for the starting running backs, or at least from the top five from each week. So 1.19 times 70 puts you close to 90 points for a third of your lineup, and you're on your way to doing well no matter what kind of contest you're in. So utilizing just these players that I have in this player pool, I'm going to share with you a couple manual lineups that I have and a couple that were generated from an optimizer that I use. So first off is Ryan Fitzpatrick at 6,000. Really like Fitzpatrick this week. A good matchup versus Cincinnati. Now, a lot of people will probably be steered away from Fitzpatrick because if you look at Cincinnati's DVP versus the wide receiver position, it's a number 5. And that number says, you will tell a lot of people, well, they must have a really good pass defense. The truth is, Cincinnati's run defense is so horrible that teams don't have to pass against them. Now, in Miami's case, they've sent Kenyon Drake to Arizona. Their number 1, number 2 running back after that went down. And now their running backs are a guy named Patrick Laird and Myles Gaskin, who are viable. But I think Fitzpatrick's going to sling the ball around. These two teams have nothing to lose. And I think this game could potentially have a lot of fantasy nuggets in it, and allows you to spend up at other places by utilizing these players. Fitzpatrick's a little bit more expensive than I like, but I like. You'll see with this particular lineup why I have him. Saquon Barkley, running back. He's projected low ownership. I like him in this matchup. In the games that he has played against Washington, he's done really well. He's coming off a really big game, and he's matchup proof. Whether they're winning or losing, he's on the field. Daniel Jones is back this week, and he likes to dump the ball off to the running back and tight end. So Barkley doesn't share carries, high snap percentage, and I really, that's what I'm really looking for in my running backs. Next is Joe Mixon. Mixon's had 19 carries at least 19 carries in each of the last 3 games, and this is part of my game stack with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Um, the Bengals are making an effort to get Mixon the ball, and with that, he did have a questionable tag, but I believe it was. He obviously doesn't have it now, but there is a note. I want to check where he'll practice fully Friday with his calf. Um, doesn't have any issues. So I'm really interested in Mixon in this game. Again, these two teams aren't playing for anything, and I just like this as Mixon as part of the stack. I'm going to give Fitzpatrick um, his seems to be his favorite target, Devontae Parker. Parker scored 30, average of 38 fantasy. No, excuse me, I'm wrong. His last game at home, he scored 38 fantasy points against Philadelphia, and the home game before that, he scored 24 points against Buffalo, who has a very good defense. Um, Fitzpatrick, I like this Fitzpatrick and Parker combination and bringing it back with Joe Mixon, and it allows me to do some other things with my lineup. I'm also going to use McLaren from uh, the Redskins. Haskins been going to him. The Giants' pass defense is a sieve, and this is I got Barkley. I'm going to bring it back with a piece of Washington's passing game. The scary thing, obviously, is Haskins. Haskins did put together a good game last week. I just need him to get some targets to McLaren, and I believe this game will have some scoring. It does have the third lowest total on the board, which is kind of scary having 2 players from that game. Actually, 3 for this lineup, but I like Barkley and bringing it back with McLaren. Next, I'm going to put Larry Fitzgerald. He's 4,200, and I just wanted a piece of this game. It's the highest total on the board at 51 points, and Arizona's going to tries to run a lot of plays, and I just feel if you look at his target total, he's getting. And I was just looking at this. He got 5 last week. He got 7 the week before, 7 the week before that, 5, 8, 4, 4, 3. Um, and he gets a lot of red zone looks from Murray as well. So I just wanted a piece of the game that is the highest total, and he fits there at not too expensive. Doesn't take much for him to get value at 4,200. He's averaging 11.5 fantasy points per game, and 4,200 is really close to what he's averaging. So if he gets a little bit above that, I'll be happy about that. Tight end, I'm going to go with Caden Smith from the Giants. He's only 3,200. And Daniel Jones is back. He's not going to be. There's no other tight ends. Red Elson's been ruled out. Evan Ingram's gone. It's just Caden Smith. Daniel Jones check down to the running back. Check down to the tight end. That's his game, and I have McLaren. So I actually have 2 little game stacks going here, with Fitzpatrick and Parker bringing it back with Mixon. Then I have Barkley and Smith bringing it back with McLaren, and I really like to build my lineups like that. Next, I'm going to put Zach Ertz in a flex. Now, there's all kinds of other possibilities for this if I wanted to, get perhaps a running back. But the situation that Philadelphia is in, first off, this is the NFC East championship game. The loser of this game between Philadelphia and Dallas is going home, unless somehow the Giants beat Philadelphia, and if let's say Philadelphia won, the Giants beat Philadelphia next week, and Dallas wins next week, then there's tiebreakers and all that. But basically, this is the NFC East champ. This is to win the division. Both teams know this, so I really like Zach Ertz in this game. They're beat up in the wide receiver area. Greg Ward, a converted college quarterback, is actually their number one receiver going into tomorrow's game. Wentz likes to go to Ertz. He gets a lot of targets, and it just so happens the Cowboys have a hard time defending the tight end position. Now, actually, and I'll show you because my defensive special team is the one I'm not going to go any lower than this, and this is real chancy, but I like them. They're low ownership. Tennessee's at home. Everybody just saw New Orleans on Monday night. They had a really big game. Drew Brees set the all-time touchdown record, on and on. But the Saints on the road are not the same team as the Saints at home. And it's just a hunch. They're averaging 9 fantasy points per game, and they're only 2,100, so it doesn't take much at all for them to get value. And this brings me back to this flex spot. Now I'm going to put Zach Ertz in there. There's some other choices. Like if I wanted to go with the 3 running back, I could plug Marlon Mack in there. But Mack doesn't get any targets. So with Mack to pay off that 6,200, I have to get 100 yards and a touchdown. I have to get over 100 yards and a touchdown to pay off value for that. I think Ertz will get a ton of targets in this game tomorrow, and it just makes sense. And where was he? He was 6,400. And I actually had 6,600 available. And Connor is sitting there. I don't like that matchup versus the Jets. The Jets are pretty good against the run. But so I'm going to go with Ertz there. Left 200 on the table. As I said, this is strictly from this player pool that I did the research and the videos through the week. Ryan Fitzpatrick and teamed up with Devontae Parker, bringing it back with Joe Mixon. Then I have Saquon Barkley and Caden Smith from the Giants, bringing it back with McLaren, and some one-offs that I feel are really good, and Zach Ertz and Larry Fitzgerald to round off my lineup. So I really like this lineup. I'll be utilizing it. It's strictly from this player pool that I've built through the week, and it just makes sense and it correlates really well. Now, I usually only do one, but I'm going to give you another one, and this is one that I like a lot as well. And this is all from the player pool. Lamar Jackson at quarterback, Christian McCaffrey at running back, Philip Lindsay. I really like Philip Lindsay a lot this week. At home, Detroit does not have a good defense. Denver has a rookie quarterback, and it's kind of obvious. And I thought his ownership would actually be higher than it is. It's only 8% right now projected ownership, but I really like this, and I like bringing and correlating it with the Denver defense as well, which will be in this particular lineup. But wide receiver, I'm going back to Larry Fitzgerald at 4,200. And I like Fitzgerald too because of this. And Kirk's still sitting there with a questionable tag. And this game is the highest total on the board. It's still listed as questionable. An ankle issue has followed Kirk since he sustained the injury in Week 4 against the Seahawks. This week, he was held out of practice Wednesday before wrapping it up with back-to-back limited showings. While Coach Cliff Kingsbury considers Kirk a game-time decision, it wouldn't surprise if Kirk continues to tough it out on Sunday. I think he'll be in there, but he's banged up. And this game with the high total, they're a double-digit underdog, so they're going to be playing from behind. They're not going to be running the ball. I just really like Fitzgerald in this situation. And to get value, I can see Fitz getting 5 times the value at 4,200 in this type of game, playing from behind. Next is another wide receiver that I had in my first lineup that I showed you. I really like Devontae Parker in this matchup. He was able to score 24 points against Buffalo at home, and Cincinnati's defense is not comparable to Buffalo's. He put 38 points on the Eagles few weeks ago. So I really like Devontae Parker, whether stacking him with uh, Fitzpatrick or as a one-off. And I'm going to use John Ross from Cincinnati from the same game, obviously. Dalton likes to go to Ross. Ross has been injured a big part of the year, but when he has been in there, he's gotten a lot of targets. He averages 13.5 fantasy points per game. He's only 4,200, and I think I can get the value. As I said, I believe this game is the fourth highest total on the board at 47 points. Miami's a very small favorite. I believe it's a half point, and I really like Ross in this situation, and having Parker on the other side, it just makes sense in a game that I think is going to be fairly high scoring and back and forth. Tight end, I'm going to use Caden Smith again. He gets a lot of targets. He's played under Manning and Jones now, and Jones likes to go to his tight ends and his running backs. That's why I had Barkley in the other lineup. But it just makes sense. It's fairly inexpensive. Doesn't take much to get value at 3,200. Another. So now I'm down to my flex spot, and I very rarely do this with the double tight end. It happened in the lineup that I showed you guys a few minutes ago, the Caden Smith with Zach Ertz. But I'm going to bring it back in this one, 4,400 for Austin Hooper. I think he is majorly underpriced at 4,400. He has just as much upside as all the other receivers. He actually has one of the highest average fantasy points per game at 15.5 fantasy points per game. 4,400. Ridley's out. Sanu's no longer there. It's just Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, and Hooper. I mean, they have Gage and Freeman out of the backfield, but Matt Ryan likes to go to his tight end a lot, and it fits, and it just it just makes sense. That game has a game total of 46.5 points. Atlanta's a 7-point home favorite. They don't scare you that much with their running game, and Ryan will be putting the ball in the air in this game. And that leaves me 3,800. Excuse me. And as I was talking about Philip Lindsay, that allows me to get the Denver Bronco defense in there, and I feel like that correlates really well. I like to do the running back with the defense. So there you go. I got Lamar Jackson running him without a target. So I got 2 players out of Jackson, and I get 2 players out of McCaffrey. So I feel like I'm actually playing with an extra 2 players and getting Lindsey, who's getting a large share of the carries in Denver. Fitzgerald in a game that's the highest total on the board. Parker from Miami and Ross in a game that I feel like has the potential to have a lot of points. Caden Smith for the Giants tight end. Hooper from Atlanta tight end, and the Broncos defense. I really like this line. I like this lineup a lot. So as I always do, I utilize an optimizer, whether it's for main slate, showdown, whatever kind of contest. I take the players that I'm interested in. Now, in this case, I take the player pool that I've developed through the week, and I set it up. I put maximum exposures. Like I don't want more than 30% of any player. Some of them I put a lot lower than that in accordance to what the projected ownership numbers are. If the projected ownership number is 10% and I really like the player, I might put maximum exposure at 20%. Now, I don't put minimum exposures because I want the optimizer to do its thing. I put a few rules in, such as I like to have a quarterback with at least one of a wide receiver or a tight end. The only one I don't do that for is Lamar Jackson. And sometimes I will put Mark Andrews or Hollywood Brown or one of his receivers with him when I'm building lineups around Lamar Jackson. In the manual lineup that I showed you that I just built, I didn't use a target for him. I don't feel like I said, that I have to have a target for Lamar Jackson. But For the optimizer, I do put that rule in there. I put rules in like I don't want two running backs from the same team. I don't want two tight ends from the same team, just so the optimizer won't do it. I set it up so I have at least 3 unique players in each lineup. I I set it for 150 lineups. It doesn't always give me 150. Today it actually gave me 141 out of the 150 requested. So out of the players that I have from just this player pool, with the few rules that I have, with the exposure limits that I have, it was able to produce 141 lineups. And from that player pool, I'm going to share with you guys the very first lineup that was generated. Please don't turn off the channel before this is over. It started off with Andy Dalton at quarterback. Running back, it had Devontae Freeman at 6,000. Christian McCaffrey, 10,100. Tyler Boyd, 5,800. Pairing him up with and another target for Dalton, which was John Ross. So I got Dalton with Boyd and Ross, and then it also had Devontae Parker, who I like a lot. It had the tight end that I have. And you see, remember, these players are all from this player pool. That's some of them I had in my manual build. In the flex, it had Zach Ertz, which is odd because I put in one of the rules that I don't want more than 10% of my lineups to have a tight end in the flex position. But this was the very first one, and it had, excuse me here, it had the Titans, and that was the lineup. 49,800. Excuse me. You got Dalton with Boyd and Ross bringing it back with Parker. You got Christian McCaffrey. You got that nice floor there for McCaffrey. Freeman from Atlanta. Jacksonville does give up a lot to the running back position, so that makes sense. Good matchup there, and a pivot away from the popular Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, Austin Hooper. Now you have, instead of that, you have maybe Freeman from the running game. Now, what I do, the main reason I do this with the optimizer is I don't MME, meaning I don't do 150 different entries. If I could, I would. I don't have anything against anybody that does it. It makes sense. It's a good way to do it. It's a good way to build bankroll. And if I'm ever in the position to do it, I will be doing it. Um, what I want to see, though, is the different randomizations of the players that I have researched and put in my player pool, the players that I'm going to use this week to build different lineups. I play a lot of different contests. I might play the $1 20 entry max. I play double ups, 50-50. I'll play some of the larger GPPs. I'll play some of the smaller tourneys, 100-man tourneys, and things like that. Or top 30 get 100. I'll play some of those, and I just spread them out. I might max out the quarters and build lineups like that. And after I let the optimizer do its thing, I import them so I have them. And then when I look at them, like, I like this one. I'm not really crazy about Freeman. And now I will use this lineup. It was the first one generated. And but I might take Freeman out of there and just mess with it a little bit. And maybe I'll put well, you can do something like, well, there's Lindsay. I like Lindsay a lot this week. That frees up a little bit of salary. Not sure that I have to have Ross in there. I could take Smith out, pop Ertz into the tight end position. He's at 6,400. Let's see here. Let's go to tight end. I just want to show you how I do this when I'm moving. And that leaves me 4,100 in my flex spot. You could go down and get a different wide receiver. That'd be pretty unique. That would be really unique. Ertz and Goddard. That's real iffy. That'd definitely be contrarian, the double tight end. But with their receiver situation, I could see that happening. Um, you could go with Greg Olson's back this week. That's interesting as well. I like Gesicki from Miami. That could you could bring it back with Gesicki. Actually, that would free. You could do even more in a game stack with Dalton at quarterback. Dalton, Boyd, Ross. Bring it back, and you got Parker. You could also bring it back with Gesicki, who was it 3,100. Let's see here, 3,600. I'm sorry, and at least 6,900. Now you've opened up a lot. I mean, you could bring this. You could take Ross out and put Mixon in there. Let's see what happens if you take Ross out. I don't normally run the quarterback with the running back. I've seen some really good lineups this year that have won using that strategy. We got 11,100. Let's see here if we wanted to go ahead and you let's just see here, 6,900 left for my flex. You got Mac, who I like a lot. There's a lot of really good possibility. Chubb had a phenomenal game against Baltimore in the first game. You could even maybe get Fournette in there. And I don't know if you could get a $3,900 receiver. Fournette gets a huge share of the carries. He's getting targets out of the backfield. But this is just a way that I do it, and I'll look at the lineup. Now it's burned me sometimes. If I'd have just left it the way it was, I probably would have done better. Um, but I want to see the different randomizations, and that's why I do it. And I look at it, and like I said, I'll move a few things around, and build different lineups similar to the ones that it give me, and that's the main reason I use my optimizer like that. So I'll go back and show you where we were with this, where it was. It had John Ross at wide receiver. Let's go to wide receiver. Sorry about that. We have Ross at 4,200, and that left us 6,900. And this was the optimizer lineup, and that was the first optimizer. I really like it. I mean, you got Dalton, Boyd, Ross, bringing it back with Parker. I left Gesicki in there, but you could go down. You could actually go down to Caden Smith, and you may up your defense if you want. The Titans are the cheapest defense that usually have a spin up, a spin down, and a couple in the middle. I really like the Denver defense this week, and correlating it with Philip Lindsay. But that was an optimizer lineup built from this player pool. The computer did this particular lineup. Not Gesicki, obviously. He wasn't in the player pool, I don't think. Yeah, he was. And he's 7% ownership. So, yeah, you could leave that there. And that's what I do with this. And I'm just showing you guys my process. I've already showed you the player pool that I've built through the week with the other videos. And there you go. I want to get this video um, posted for you guys to have this weekend. I want to thank you guys for joining me. I encourage you to please drop any opinions or comments that you may have below. Please share this video, like it, subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, excuse me. Hit that notification bell so you get notified when my next video posts. I'm going to try to get out the Sunday Night Showdown, Kansas City Chiefs for Chicago Bears video in the morning. I'm going out of town tomorrow just for the holidays. But I hope to hear about some people doing some winning. I hope this information provides you some value. And definitely reach out to me if you have any questions. I try to answer those questions. But I look forward to hearing that you guys did really well. Again, have a really good Christmas, happy holidays, and I will be back to build for the final week, and then I'll still be doing the videos for the playoffs as well. This channel has grown and it exceeded my expectations. As I mentioned, if you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. I've got some really good information. I like sharing my process. I've taken down a few large GPPs in my career doing this, and I have a good time doing it. Have some good weeks, some bad weeks, and do. I also do the season long. I did really well in season long this year, and I look forward to hearing from you guys. And I really just want you to be able to get some value. And if you got any input about anything, please feel free to do so. A few of you have reached out to me, and I really appreciate it. You got some really good ideas, and this community and this channel, I really want it to grow, and hopefully next year it'll be even bigger, and I'm going to keep it going. So again, thank you for joining me. Don't forget your injury reports before you submit your lineups tomorrow. The 1 o'clock games injury reports at 11:30, and the 4 o'clock you want to start checking about 10 till 3 or 3 o'clock for those games. Always check your injury reports. You never know, last second, even if they don't have any type of injury designation going into it, suddenly they get the flu or they disappear for their family situation. Always check your injury reports. You can also follow me on Twitter at Winning About. My name is Ty Patton. This is all about winning daily fantasy sports, and I'll see you guys again real soon. Thank you.